right? It's actually like taking down a plane, right? These things that I've researched on actually say how to take control over a flight control system, how to sort of hack into a program. They teach it. And there had been a conference lately, if I'm not mistaken, last week, right, where international conference, which was organized to discuss this whole threat of cyber warfare, and in the meantime, which also discussed, or which also had sessions being conducted on how to conduct a successful cyber attack. So this is happening. The special aspect of cyber warfare or cyber attacks, it's very inexpensive. You don't have to build an army. It takes a couple of people, just one individual, or maybe in the future, just a robot. You can just press a button with a mouse click, you start a world war, right? So, other thing which makes this threat a very real one is the fact, ladies and gentlemen, that internet is accessible to anyone. Anyone and everyone actually, right? Anyone can have access to internet. That's the beauty of the modern digital era. So sometimes a state who is sort of fed up of the activities of a foreign hostile government, without declaring war, as I said earlier, right, mount a cyber attack, and the other hostile government may never know who launched the attack, from where it came, but still be a victim of it. And there are American specialists, American experts who are very enthusiastically right now looking for methods to sort of face such cyber attacks, because there are predictions that in very near future, even now, they should be under such an attack. Right. The problem is, let's imagine when we are in this room, right? If couple of government controlled websites went down, who would blame an attacker? Because it would take some time for the people to realize that this is actually an attack and not a technical failure. It's very hard to identify. If the a flight control system loses control over the flights, it would take some time for them to figure out what has actually happened, and the damage is done. So when people are thinking of making nuclear treaties, right? What I suggest is the nuclear era is sort of behind us. I don't think anybody would go for nuclear war, go for a nuclear war. But it is very possible that the world community, or a couple of governments at least, may go for a cyber war, right? Then, why do we need to regulate it? Now, ladies and gentlemen, due to the novelty of the scenario and also its effects, issue of identification and everything, we don't have a regime which we can use to regularize it. We don't have precedents to look up to see, okay, if one hostile government attacks another government using the internet, if they take down the government infrastructure, if they kill a couple of people, what is the action? Under which law would you challenge the other law before an international forum? It is not very clear, because we don't have precedents of a cyber war. And even if it happens within the territory, right, we cannot enforce the local laws. Now, we have Cyber Crimes Act. Of course, I agree. It covers a lot of areas of cyber crimes like hacking and everything. But just because it happens inside the country, we can't sort of convict the perpetrators under the local law, because it doesn't carry force beyond the state. If it is launched by an attacker in India or Pakistan, just for explanation purposes, right, we cannot apply our own law for that. We need to have principles in international law. So what I sort of expected to go on in my research is that since it is very difficult at this point to go for an international convention on cyber warfare, since we don't have time, maybe an attack is already underway in the international forum, international arena. So because it's difficult, we can use principles like use of force and also principles like state responsibility to be utilized to regularize cyber warfare. In conclusion, since we have run out of time, what I plan to explain is According to the UN Charter, all states are prohibited in using force against political independence, territorial integrity of a state. This particular word they have used is force and not arms, and they have not used the term war. So there's potential that we can interpret the term force here to include activities such as cyber warfare, right? So in that manner, we can make a state actually responsible for exercising force against another state and make them responsible before international forums. And also, the other point, important point which I'll make and which I'll come to an end of this presentation is, by interpreting the UN Charter provisions relating to the right of self-defense, it actually reveals that if a cyber attack goes to an extent of actually damaging the property and damaging human life, then of course these provisions can be interpreted to sort of give rise to a right of self-defense under international law until UN interference. And also, I was expecting to discuss how to establish state responsibility in cyber warfare as well. So, since I have run out of time, ladies and gentlemen, this is the conclusion. The threat is real. We don't have a convention. We don't have time for convention. Some of the people have been discussing on coming up with a new Geneva Convention for cyber warfare. But we really don't have time for that. What we can do is we have to develop. We have to sort of have authorities, establish authorities out of these existing principles to accommodate cyber-related attacks as well. Thank you very much.